You open your banking app. You do it without thinking. Thumb to phone, same way you check the weather. The number is there. And for a second, something in you does a quiet calculation. Is this enough? You already know the answer. It never quite is. The strange thing isn't that you feel that way when you're struggling. The strange thing is that you feel it no matter what the number says. People earning $30,000 feel it. People earning $300,000 feel it. People who just got the raise they spent 2 years chasing feel it within a month. The feeling of not quite enough is not a financial problem. And the fact that it follows you up every income bracket you'll ever climb is one of the strangest things about being human. Let's start with the data, because the data is genuinely unsettling. For a long time, the accepted wisdom was that money bought happiness up to a point, around $75,000 a year, and after that the curve flattened. You'd heard this. Everyone had. It felt intuitively right, comfortable, but not greedy. A tidy conclusion. Then Matthew Killingsworth at the University of Pennsylvania ran one of the largest real-time studies of human happiness ever conducted. He tracked over 33,000 employed adults using an app that pinged them throughout the day and asked how they were feeling right now, in the moment, not in retrospect. The results dismantled the $75,000 ceiling entirely. Well-being kept rising with income well past that point, logarithmically but consistently. More money, more happiness. The relationship didn't stop, and yet, Killingsworth also found something the headlines mostly skipped. Even at the highest income levels in the study, a significant portion of people still reported feeling financially anxious, still felt like they were behind, still did the quiet calculation and came up short. The money was there, the feeling wasn't keeping up with it, which means the question was never really about how much you have. It was always about whether enough feels like a place you can actually reach. And for most people it doesn't. Not because they're failing, because the brain was never designed to experience enough as a destination. The feeling of not having enough isn't a gap in your bank account, it's a gap in the architecture of your mind. Here's where the biology gets strange. Your brain doesn't experience the world in absolutes. It experiences change. It is, at its core, a difference engine, constantly measuring the gap between where you were and where you are now, not the fixed value of where you are. Think about holding an ice cube. In the first few seconds, it's cold, painfully cold, but keep holding it, and within a minute your hand has stopped screaming at you. The ice hasn't warmed up, your hand is still being damaged, but your brain, having registered the cold, has filed it away and moved on. It adapted. That's not a flaw. That's one of the most sophisticated survival mechanisms ever produced by evolution. You can't function if every stimulus stays at maximum volume forever. The same system runs on your salary. The year you go from $40,000 to $55,000 is a good year. You feel it. Something loosens. You notice it at the supermarket, on holiday, at the end of the month when the account doesn't drop to zero. The $15,000 difference is real, and your brain registers it exactly the way it should, as change, as movement, as progress. Then 6 months pass, and $55,000 becomes the ice cube your hand has stopped feeling. It's not a raise anymore, it's just the temperature of your life. So now the brain goes looking for the next difference, the next gap, the next movement upward that would mean something, and it will find one because it always does. You'll always be standing one step below something that feels like it would finally be enough. The cruelest part of this isn't that you're ungrateful, it's that the system works perfectly. You adapted. That's what it was built to do. The problem is that it was built for a world where resources were scarce, and pursuing more kept you alive. It was not built for a world where you're sitting in a centrally heated flat with food in every cupboard, wondering why $55,000 doesn't feel the way $55,000 felt on paper. Your brain adapted you right out of the ability to feel comfortable. But adaptation alone doesn't explain the whole thing, because you're not just measuring yourself against your past self, you're measuring yourself against everyone else. There's a concept in economics called positional goods. The idea is that some things have value not because of what they are, but because of where they place you relative to other people. A car that gets you from A to B is a functional good. A car that signals you've arrived somewhere, that's a positional good. And the uncomfortable truth that researchers keep bumping into is that for a lot of people, money itself functions more like the second thing than the first. In the 1990s, economists started noticing something odd in the happiness data. People in wealthier countries weren't meaningfully happier than people in poorer countries at the same level. And within countries, as average incomes rose over decades, average life satisfaction barely moved. Everyone was getting richer together, and that, it turned out, was the problem. Because your brain doesn't ask, do I have enough? It asks, do I have more than the person next to me? This isn't vanity, it's ancient. For most of human history, your position in the group determined your access to food, to mates, to safety. Falling behind the group wasn't embarrassing, it was dangerous. So the brain evolved a finely tuned radar for relative position. not absolute wealth, rank. Robert Frank at Cornell spent years documenting what he called expenditure cascades, the way spending ripples down through income groups as each level tries to keep pace with the one above it. The top 1% builds bigger houses. The upper middle class responds by building bigger houses too, which shifts what counts as a normal house for everyone below them. Nobody decided to feel inadequate. The baseline just moved, quietly, the way baselines always do. You're not comparing yourself to subsistence farmers in 1400. You are comparing yourself to the people immediately above you in the hierarchy, and there will always be people immediately above you in the hierarchy, which means the finish line is not a place, it's a relationship, and relationships move. Now take that already uncomfortable wiring and hand it a smartphone. For the vast majority of human history, your comparison pool was about 150 people. That's the number anthropologists estimate our ancestors lived and worked alongside, the size of a hunter-gatherer band, a medieval village, a functional community. Your brain's social radar was calibrated for 150 people. It evolved to track 150 people. It is, at a fundamental level, only really built to hold 150 people in meaningful relation to itself. Then, in roughly 15 years, that number became 8 billion. Social media didn't invent social comparison, it industrialized it. And it didn't just expand the size of the comparison pool, it warped it almost beyond recognition. Because you are not comparing yourself to a random sample of 8 billion people. You are comparing yourself to a heavily curated highlight reel of the most photogenic moments from the most successful seeming people in a network algorithmically optimized to show you content that produces the strongest emotional response, which, as it turns out, is usually the response that sits somewhere between admiration and inadequacy. Nobody posts the Tuesday where the business is struggling and the credit card bill arrived and dinner was toast because nobody went to the shop. They post the launch, the holiday, the new car in the driveway photographed at golden hour. And your 150-person brain does exactly what it evolved to do. It benchmarks, it ranks, and you sit lower than you did this morning, without anything in your actual life having changed. The researchers who study this keep finding the same pattern. Passive scrolling, just watching other people's lives scroll past, is consistently associated with lower financial satisfaction, even when income is held constant. It's not the money that changed, it's the reference point. Moved again by someone you've never met, living a life you're only seeing the best 15 seconds of. Your ancestors had 150 people to feel behind. You have everyone who has ever posted a holiday photo, and your brain is treating both situations identically. And just when you think a genuine windfall might finally reset the whole system, it doesn't. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill. You get the raise, the bonus, the unexpected inheritance. For a few weeks, something shifts. The number feels real. You breathe slightly differently. Then the new number becomes the ice cube, familiar, unfelt, just the temperature of your life now. Researchers who studied lottery winners found that within a year, their happiness had returned almost exactly to where it was before the ticket. Not because they were ungrateful, because the brain had simply absorbed the new reality into its baseline and gone looking for the next gap to measure. The new car stops feeling new. The bigger flat stops feeling big. The salary that once seemed impossible starts feeling tight. Every gain gets quietly filed away as the new floor, and the ceiling, the thing that would finally be enough, floats upward by exactly the same amount. The treadmill doesn't stop, it just resets the starting position, and you begin again from exactly the same place you thought you'd left behind. More money doesn't silence the feeling, it relocates it. So check the number again in your bank account. It hasn't changed. You now know that the feeling was never really about what was in there. It was about everything the brain decided that number meant. It was always going to feel like this. The account was never really the problem, you just didn't know what you were actually measuring.